Goguryeo was a Korean kingdom that spanned the northern and central parts of the Korean peninsula and the southern and central parts of northeast China. At its height, Goguryeo ruled most of the Korean peninsula, large parts of Manchuria, and parts of eastern Mongolia and inner Mongolia. Goguryeo was one of the three kingdoms of Korea, along with Baekje and Silla. Goguryeo was an active participant in the power struggle for control of the Korean peninsula and was also associated with the foreign affairs of neighboring polities in China and Japan. Goguryeo was one of the great powers in East Asia until it was defeated by a Silla-Tang alliance in 668. This was the result of prolonged exhaustion and internal strife caused by the death of Yeon Gaisomun. After its fall, its territory was divided between the Tang Dynasty, later Silla, and Balhae. The name Goguryeo, alternatively spelled Koryo, a shortened form of Goguryeo, Goguryeo, was adopted as the official name in the 5th century. It is the origin of the English name. Korea. Founding and early years origin of Goguryeo. The earliest record of Goguryeo can be found in the geographic monographs of the Book of Han. The name Goguryeo is attested in the name of Gaoguli County, Goguryeo County, Xuantu Commandery since 113 BCE, the year when Emperor Wu of Han China conquered Gojoseon and established the 4 commanderies. Beckwith, however, was certain that the record was incorrect. He was adamant that the Goguryeo people were first located in or around Liaoxi, western Liaoning, and parts of Inner Mongolia, and later migrated eastward, citing another account in the Book of Han. The early Goguryeo tribes were under the administration of Xuantu Commandery and were perceived as dependable clients or allies by the Han. Goguryeo leaders were conferred Han rank and status, with the Marquis of Goguryeo being the most prominent. This carried a relatively independent authority within Xuantu. Some historians are convinced that the Goguryeo were far more powerful during this period. They believe that their insurgency was the result of the collapse of the first Xuantu Commandery in 75 BCE. The Old Book of Tang, 945, states that Emperor Taizong considered Goguryeo to be around 900 years old. The 12th century Samguk Sagi and the 13th century Samgung Nyusa are clear on this point. A prince from the Buyeo kingdom named Jumong fled after a power struggle with other princes of the court and founded Goguryeo in 37 BCE in a region called Jolbon Buyeo. This is usually thought to be located in the middle Yalu and Tongjia River basin, overlapping the current China-North Korea border. Chumo was the founding monarch of the kingdom of Goguryeo and was worshipped as a god-king by the people of Goguryeo. Chumo was originally a Buyeo slang for an excellent archer, and that's how he became known. He was commonly recorded as Jumong by various Chinese literatures, including history books written by Northern Qi and Tang. This name became dominant in future writings, including Samguk Sagi and Samguk Yusa. Yuri of Goguryeo, King Yuri, was the second ruler of Goguryeo, the northernmost of the 3 kingdoms of Korea. He was the eldest son of the kingdom's founder, Chumo the Holy. As with many other early Korean rulers, the events of his life are known largely from the Samguk Sagi. Yuri is known to have been a powerful and militarily successful king. He conquered a Xianbei tribe in 9 BCE with the help of Bu Bun No. In 3 BCE, Yuri moved the capital from Jolbon to Gongnei. Wang Mang overthrew the Han Dynasty and established the Xin Dynasty. In 12 CE, Wang Mang sent a messenger to Goguryeo to demand troops to assist in the conquest of the Xiongnu. Yuri rejected the request and instead attacked Xin. He had 6 sons, including Hamyong and Muhyul. Daimusin of Goguryeo. King Daimusin was the 3rd ruler of Goguryeo, the northernmost of the 3 kingdoms of Korea. He led early Goguryeo through a period of massive territorial expansion, conquering several smaller nations and the powerful kingdom of Dongbuyeo. Daemusin strengthened central rule of Goguryeo and expanded its territory. He annexed Dongbuyo and killed its king Daiso in 22 CE. In 26 CE, he conquered Gyeomaguk along the Amnok River and later conquered Gudaguk. After fending off China's attack in 28, he sent his son, Prince Hodong, who was about 16 at the time, to attack the Nangnang Commandery. He also defeated the Nakrang Kingdom in northwestern Korea in 32. He destroyed Nangnang in 37, but the Eastern Han army sent by Emperor Gwangwu of Han captured it in 44. Minjung of Goguryeo. King Minjung was the fourth ruler of Goguryeo, the northernmost of the three kingdoms of Korea. The history of the three kingdoms states that he was the younger brother of the country's third ruler, King Daemusin, and the fifth son of the second ruler, King Yuri. During Minjung's 5 years of reign, he successfully avoided military conflict and maintained peace throughout most of the kingdom. In his first year of reign, he issued a massive pardon of prisoners. His reign was marked by several natural disasters, including a flood during his second year that devastated the eastern provinces, forcing many citizens to lose their homes and starve. Minjung opened the food storage and distributed food to the people. Taejodai of Goguryeo. King Taejo was the sixth monarch of Goguryeo, the northernmost of the three kingdoms of Korea. During his reign, the young state expanded its territory and developed into a centrally ruled kingdom. His 93-year reign is thought to be the third longest of any monarch in the world, and there is no doubt about it. In his first year as king, he centralized the kingdom by turning the 5 clans into 5 provinces, ruled by a governor from that clan, who were under the direct control of the king. He firmly established royal control of the military, economy, and politics. Once Goguryeo had centralized, it was unable to feed its population. This meant that it would have had to raid and exploit neighboring societies for their land and resources. This was a common practice among pastoralist societies. Aggressive military activities undoubtedly aided expansion, allowing Goguryeo to exact tribute from their tribal neighbors and dominate them politically and economically. He fought on various occasions with China's Han Dynasty and disrupted trade between Lelang and Han. In 55, he ordered the construction of a fortress in the Liaodong Commandery. He attacked Chinese border regions in 105, 111, and 118. In 122, Taejo allied with the Mahan Confederacy of Central Korea and the neighboring Yemek tribe to attack Liaodong, greatly expanding the realm of Goguryeo. In 146, he launched another major attack, Goguryeo of Goguryeo King. Goguryeo of Goguryeo was the 9th monarch of Goguryeo, one of the 3 kingdoms of Korea. In 180, Goguryeo married Lady Yu, the daughter of Yu So of the Jeonnabu, further consolidating central power. During his reign, the names of 5 powerful regional clans became names of districts of the Central Kingdom. Rebellions by the aristocracy were suppressed, notably in 191. In 184, Goguryeo sent his younger brother, Prince Gyesu, to fight the Chinese Han Dynasty invasion force led by the governor of Liaodong. Prince Gyesu was able to block the army, but the king later led his armies to repel Han forces in 184. In 191, King Goguryeo introduced a meritocratic system for selecting government officials. This led to the discovery of many talented people from all over Goguryeo, the greatest of whom was Eulpaso, who was appointed prime minister. Goguryeo allies with Cao Wei Sima Yi's Liaodong campaign occurred in 238 CE during the Three Kingdoms period of Chinese history. Sima Yi, a general of the state of Cao Wei, led a force of 40,000 troops to attack the kingdom of Yan, led by warlord Gongsun Yuan. Gongsun Yuan's clan had ruled independently from the central government for 3 generations in the northeastern territory of Liaodong, present-day eastern Liaoning. After a 3-month siege, Sima Yi and Goguryeo, one of the three kingdoms of Korea, captured Gongsun Yuan's headquarters, resulting in the massacre of many who served the Yan kingdom. The successful campaign also allowed Wei to gain control of Liaodong, which gave them access to the non-Han peoples of Manchuria, the Korean peninsula, and the Japanese archipelago. Conversely, the war and subsequent centralization policies weakened the Chinese grip on the territory, paving the way for the formation of numerous non-Han states in the area in later centuries. The Goguryeo-Wei War was a series of invasions of the Korean kingdom of Goguryeo by the Chinese state of Cao between 244 and 245. The invasions, a retaliation against a Goguryeo raid in 242, destroyed the Goguryeo capital of Hwando, sent its king fleeing, and broke the tributary relationships between Goguryeo and the other tribes of Korea that formed much of Goguryeo's economy. Although the king evaded capture and would go on to settle in a new capital, Goguryeo was greatly diminished for a time. It would spend the next half-century rebuilding its ruling structure and regaining control over its people, unmentioned by the Chinese historical texts. By the time Goguryeo reappeared in Chinese annals, the state had evolved into a much more powerful political entity. This is why historians identify the Wei invasion as a watershed moment in Goguryeo history, marking the division of the different stages of Goguryeo's growth. Furthermore, the second campaign of the war included the furthest expedition into Manchuria by a Chinese army up to that time. This was instrumental in providing the earliest descriptions of the peoples who lived there. Wei invasion. In 259, at the King Jungcheon's 12th year of reign, the Cao Wei general Wei Chikai, invaded with his army. The king sent 5,000 cavalry to fight them in the Yangmayak region, and the Wei forces were defeated and about 8,000 people slain. Period of expansion. Goguryeo conquers the last Chinese commandery. In only 70 years, Goguryeo rebuilt its capital Hwando, and again began to raid the Liaodong, Leilong, and Xuantu commanderies. Goguryeo extended its reach into the Liaodong Peninsula, conquering the last Chinese commandery at Leilong in 313 and absorbing it into Michen. This brought the remaining northern part of the Korean peninsula into the fold. This conquest marked the end of Chinese rule over territory in the northern Korean peninsula, which had spanned 400 years. From that point on, until the 7th century, the three kingdoms of Korea would be the primary contenders for territorial control of the peninsula. Yanbei destroys Goguryeo's capital. Goguryeo suffered major setbacks and defeats during the reign of Gogukwon in the 4th century. In the early 4th century, the Xianbei people, a nomadic proto-Mongol group, occupied northern China. In the winter of 342, the Xianbei of former Yan, ruled by the Murong clan, attacked and destroyed Goguryeo's capital, Hwando. They captured 50,000 Goguryeo men and women to use as slave labor, as well as the queen mother and queen prisoner. King Gogukwon was forced to flee for a while. In 346, the Xianbei also devastated Buyeo, accelerating the migration of Buyeo to the Korean peninsula. Sosurim of Goguryeo. King Sosurim of Goguryeo became king in 371, succeeding his father King Gogugwon, who was killed by the Baekje king Gunchogo's assault on Pyongyang Castle. Sosurim undoubtedly strengthened the centralization of authority in Goguryeo by establishing state religious institutions to transcend tribal factionalism. The development of a centralized government system was largely attributed to Sosurim's reconciliation policy with its southern opponent, Baekje. The year 372 was a pivotal moment in Korean history, not just for Buddhism, but also for Confucianism and Taoism. Sosurim also established the Confucian institutions of Taihak, Tai Shui, literally great learning, to educate the children of the nobility. In 373, he promulgated a code of laws called Lueling, which stimulated the institutionalized law systems, including penal codes and codified regional customs. In 374, 375, and 376, he attacked the Korean kingdom of Baekje to the south. In 378, he was attacked by the Khitan from the north. King Soserim spent most of his reign and life trying to keep Goguryeo under control and strengthening royal authority. Although he was unable to avenge the death of his father and previous Goguryeo ruler, King Gogugwan, he played a pivotal role in laying the foundations that enabled his nephew and later ruler of Goguryeo, King Goguryeo the Great, to achieve reckless subjugations. Buddhism. In 372, King Soserim received Buddhism through traveling monks of former Qin and built temples to house them. It is said that the king of former Qin during the 16 Kingdoms period sent monk Sundo with images and scriptures of Buddha, and that monk Ado, a native of Goguryeo, returned 2 years later. The first temple, Honguk Monastery of Korean Kingdoms, was constructed around the capital with the full support of the royal family. There is no doubt that Buddhism was established before 372. The mid-4th century mausoleum styles under the Buddhist influence are clear evidence of this. Soserim consolidated Buddhist footprints not only on the Korean people's spiritual world, but also in terms of bureaucracy systems and ideology. Goguryeo Wei War. The Goguryeo War occurred at the end of the 4th century and the beginning of the 5th century between Goguryeo and the Baekje alliance. Goguryeo made both Silla and Baekje its subjects, unifying the three kingdoms of Korea for about 50 years. Goguryeo, the Great Goguryeo. The Great was the 19th monarch of Goguryeo. Goguryeo ushered in a golden age for Goguryeo, transforming it into a powerful empire and one of the great powers in East Asia. Goguryeo made enormous advances and conquests into He conquered western Manchuria against Khitan tribes, Inner Mongolia and the maritime province of Russia against numerous nations and tribes, and the Han River Valley in central Korea to control over 2/3 of the Korean peninsula. In regard to the Korean peninsula, Goguryeo defeated Baekje, the most powerful of the three kingdoms of Korea, in 396, capturing the capital city of Wiryeseong in present-day Seoul. In 399, Silla, the southeastern kingdom of Korea, sought and received aid from Goguryeo due to incursions by Baekje troops and their Wa allies from the Japanese archipelago. Goguryeo dispatched 50,000 expeditionary troops, crushing his enemies and securing Silla as a de facto protectorate. He thus subdued the other Korean kingdoms and achieved a loose unification of the Korean peninsula under Goguryeo. In his western campaigns, he soundly defeated the Xianbei of the later Yan Empire and conquered the Liaodong Peninsula, reclaiming the ancient domain of Gojoseon. Goguryeto's achievements are immortalized on the Goguryeo stele, erected in 414 at the supposed site of his tomb in Jian along the present-day China-North Korea border. Jiangsu of Goguryeo was the 20th monarch of Goguryeo, the northernmost of the three kingdoms of Korea. Jiangsu reigned during the golden age of Goguryeo, when it was a powerful empire and one of the great powers in East Asia. He continued to expand his father's territory through conquest, while also demonstrating remarkable diplomatic abilities. Like his father, Goguryeo the Great, Jiangsu succeeded in unifying the three kingdoms of Korea. Furthermore, Jiangsu's long reign saw the perfecting of Goguryeo's political, economic, and other institutional arrangements. Jiangsu changed the official name of Goguryeo, Goguryeo, to the shortened Goryeo, Goryeo, from which the name Korea originates. In 427, he relocated the Goguryeo capital from Gungne Fortress, present-day Jian on the China-North Korea border, to Pyongyang, a more suitable region to grow into a burgeoning metropolitan capital. This led to Goguryeo achieving a high level of cultural and economic prosperity. Internal strife. Goguryeo reached its zenith in the 6th century. However, this was followed by a steady decline. Anjiang was assassinated and succeeded by his brother Anwan, during whose reign aristocratic factionalism increased. A political schism deepened as two factions advocated different princes for succession, until the 8-year-old Yang Wan was finally crowned. However, the power struggle was never resolved definitively. Instead, renegade magistrates with private armies appointed themselves de facto rulers of their areas of control. Goguryeo's internal struggles allowed a nomadic group called the Tuchue to attack and conquer some of Goguryeo's northern lands in the 550s. The civil war among the feudal lords over royal succession further weakened Goguryeo. In 551, Baekje and Silla allied to attack Goguryeo from the south. Peak and Golden Age Goguryeo-Sui War. The Goguryeo-Sui War was a series of invasions launched by the Sui Dynasty of China against Goguryeo, one of the three kingdoms of Korea, between CE 598 and CE 614. The Sui were defeated, and this was one of the main reasons for the collapse of the dynasty and the overthrow of the Sui by the Tang in 618. The Sui dynasty unified China in 589, vanquishing the Chen dynasty and ending the country's 300-year division. After unifying China, the Sui dynasty asserted its position as an overlord of neighboring countries. However, in Goguryeo, one of the three kingdoms of Korea, King Pyongwon and his successor Yongyang were adamant that they would maintain an equal relationship with the Sui dynasty. Emperor Wen of Sui was not pleased with the challenge from Goguryeo, which continued to raid Sui's northern border. In 596, Wen sent diplomatic papers after Sui envoys spotted Goguryeo diplomats in the yurt of the eastern Turkish Khanate. He demanded that Goguryeo cancel any military alliance with the Turks, stop the annual raiding of Sui border regions, and acknowledge Sui as their overlord. In response, Yongyang launched a joint preemptive invasion with the Malgal against the Chinese along the border in present-day Hebei province in 597. Battle of Salsu River. In 612, Emperor Yang of Sui invaded Goguryeo with over 1 million men. He was unable to overcome the Goguryeo defense at Liaoyang-Yoyang, so he dispatched 300,000 troops to Pyongyang, the capital of Goguryeo. The Sui forces were unable to advance further due to internal discord within the Sui dynasty command and the lack of supplies due to the secret disposal of the soldiers' personal equipment and munitions in the middle. Goguryeo General Yulji Mundeok, who had been blocking the Sui forces for several months, noticed this. He prepared to attack the Salsu River, Cheongcheon River, and caused significant damage while pretending to retreat deep into Goguryeo territory. Yulji Mundeok had cut off the flow of water with a dam in advance, and when the Sui troops reached the river, they found the water level to be shallow. When the unsuspecting Sui troops were halfway across the river, Yulji Mundeok opened the dam, drowning thousands of enemy soldiers in the onslaught of water. The Goguryeo cavalry then charged the remaining Sui forces, inflicting enormous casualties. The Sui troops were forced to retreat at a breakneck pace to the Liaodong Peninsula to avoid being killed or captured. Many retreating soldiers died of disease or starvation as their army had exhausted their food supplies. This resulted in the loss of all but 2,700 Sui troops out of 300,000 men. The Battle of Salsu is undoubtedly one of the most lethal classical formation battles in world history. With a victory over Sui China at the Salsu River, Goguryeo ultimately prevailed in the Goguryeo-Sui War. The Sui dynasty, devastated by the loss of manpower and resources as a result of its Korean campaigns, began to collapse from within and was ultimately brought down by internal strife, to be replaced soon thereafter by the Tang. Goguryeo allies with Baekje against Silla. In the winter of 642, King Yongnyu was right to be apprehensive about Yeon Gaisomun, one of the great nobles of Goguryeo. He plotted with other officials to kill him. However, Yeon Gaisomun caught wind of the plot and killed Yongnyu and 100 officials, launching a coup d'etat. He proceeded to enthrone Yongnu's nephew, Gojong, as King Bojong while wielding de facto control of Goguryeo himself as the generalissimo. Yeon Gaisomun took an increasingly provocative stance against Silla Korea and Tang China. Goguryeo formed an alliance with Baekje and invaded Silla, conquering Dayasong, modern Hapcheon, and around 40 border fortresses. The first conflict of the Goguryeo-Tang War began when Emperor Taizong, r. 626-649, of the Tang Dynasty, led a military campaign against Goguryeo in 645 to protect Silla and punish Generalissimo Yeon Gaisomun for the killing of King Yongnu. The Tang forces were commanded by Emperor Taizong himself, along with generals Li Shiji, Li Daozong, and Jiangsun Wuji. In 645, after capturing multiple Goguryeo fortresses and defeating large armies in his path, Emperor Taizong was on the brink of marching on the capital Pyongyang and conquering Goguryeo. However, he was unable to overcome the formidable defenses at Ansi Fortress, which was under the command of Yang Manchun at the time. Emperor Taizong withdrew after more than 60 days of battle and unsuccessful siege. Goguryeo-Tang War. The Goguryeo-Tang War was fought between 645 and 668. It was a conflict between Goguryeo and the Tang Dynasty. During the course of the war, the two sides allied with various other states. Goguryeo successfully repulsed the invading Tang armies during the first Tang invasions of 645-648. After conquering Baekje in 660, Tang and Silla armies invaded Goguryeo from the north and south in 1661. However, they were forced to withdraw in 662. In 666, Yeon Gaisomun died, and Goguryeo was plunged into violent dissension, numerous defections, and widespread demoralization. The Tang-Silla alliance launched a new invasion the following year, with the defector Yeon Namsaeng providing crucial support. In late 668, Goguryeo and the remnants of the Baekje army were defeated by the Tang Dynasty and Silla, who had the numerical advantage. The war marked the end of the Three Kingdoms of Korea period, which had lasted since 57 BCE. This also triggered the Silla-Tang War, during which the Silla Kingdom and the Tang Empire fought over the spoils they had gained. Battle of Ansi. The Siege of Ansi was the battle that decided the fate of the first campaign in the Goguryeo-Tang War. It was a battle between Goguryeo and Tang forces in Ansi, a fortress in the Liaodong Peninsula. The confrontation lasted for about 3 months, from 20th June 645 to 18th September 645. The initial phase of combat resulted in the defeat of a Goguryeo relief force of 150,000, and the Tang troops laid siege to the fortress. After a 2-month siege, the Tang forces constructed a rampart. However, the rampart was on the brink of completion when a section of it collapsed and was taken over by the defenders. This, along with the arrival of Goguryeo reinforcements and the lack of supplies, forced the Tang troops to retreat. Over 20,000 Goguryeo troops were killed during the siege. Fall of Goguryeo. In 666 CE, the death of Yeon Gaisomun, a powerful leader of Goguryeo, led to internal turmoil. His eldest son, Yeon Namsaeng, succeeded him, but he was soon faced with rumors of conflict with his brothers, Yeon Namgeon and Yeon Namsan. This strife led to Yeon Namgeon's rebellion and seizure of power. In the midst of these events, Yeon Namsaeng sought help from the Tang Dynasty, changing his family name to Cheon in the process. Emperor Gaozong of Tang saw this as an opportunity to intervene and launched a military campaign against Goguryeo. In 667, Tang forces crossed the Liao River and captured key fortresses, despite resistance from Yeon Namgeon. With the help of defectors, including Yeon Namsaeng, they overcame opposition at the Yalu River. By 668, Tang and allied Silla forces laid siege to Pyongyang. Yeon Namsan and King Bojang surrendered, but Yeon Namgeon resisted until he was betrayed by his general, Shin Seong. Despite his attempt at suicide, Yeon Namgeon was captured alive, marking the end of Goguryeo. The Tang Dynasty annexed the region and established the Andong Protectorate. The downfall of Goguryeo was largely down to the internal conflict that followed Yongesomun's death, which allowed the Tang-Silla alliance to triumph. However, Tang's rule was resisted, leading to forced relocations of Goguryeo people and their inclusion in Tang society. Some, like Go Sagye and his son Gao Xianji, served the Tang government. Meanwhile, Silla achieved unification of most of the Korean peninsula by 668. However, it faced challenges due to its reliance on Tang. The Tang Dynasty maintained control over former Goguryeo territories despite Silla's resistance. The Silla-Tang Wars commenced, resulting in Tang forces being expelled from areas south of the Taedong River. However, Silla was unable to reclaim the northern territories. Epilogue. The culture of Goguryeo was shaped by its climate, religion, and the tense society that people dealt with due to the numerous wars Goguryeo waged. We know very little about Goguryeo culture because many records have been lost. Goguryeo art, preserved largely in tomb paintings, is unquestionably noted for the vigor and fine detail of its imagery. The art pieces are original and depict various traditions that have continued throughout Korea's history. The cultural legacies of Goguryeo are evident in modern Korean culture, as evidenced by Korean fortress, Sirium, Taekyon, Korean dance, ondol, Goguryeo's floor heating system, and the hanbok are all cultural legacies of Goguryeo. North Korea and Manchuria have yielded numerous remains of walled towns, fortresses, palaces, tombs, and artifacts, including ancient paintings in a Goguryeo tomb complex in Pyongyang. Some ruins are also still visible in present-day China, for example at Wunu Mountain, which is thought to be the site of Jolbon Fortress, near Hwanren in Liaoning Province, on the present border with North Korea. Jian is home to a large collection of Goguryeo-era tombs, including the tombs of Gwanggaeto and his son Jiangsu, as well as the Gwanggaeto stele, one of the primary sources for pre-5th century Goguryeo history. The modern English name Korea derives from Goguryeo, also spelled as Koryo, 918-1392, which regarded itself as the legitimate successor of Goguryeo. The name Goguryeo was first used during the reign of Jiangsu in the 5th century.
We offer you deep historical information from history on YouTube channel. Subscribe. Now don't forget to turn on notifications.